Welcome to Female Fluence. We are a place of women empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Promash Shur, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of three, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. Stories matter because they help us connect with others, make sense of the world, and understand ourselves. They also carry the culture and values of society. Real stories are powerful. They show us that change is possible and reveal possibilities even in the seemingly impossible situations. Your story matters because it could offer someone else's hope. One of the main reasons I do this podcast. Many search for meaning in life, trying to understand our purpose. We often turn to material things, gadgets, mimic others, but the journey can still feel challenging and empty. We spend years seeking purpose. Research has shown that having a purpose improves physical and mental health, boosting cognitive function and increasing longevity. My guest, Traci Mitchell, is an inspirational powerhouse who uses her voice and storytelling to captivate audiences for major global corporations. She is drawn from her own experiences to write a book that deeply examines successful women living with purpose. Traci Mitchell is an Emmy award-winning journalist, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, host, and author. She is known for her passion, her authenticity, and energy. She excels at getting to the heart of situations and finding creative solutions to seemingly impossible tasks. With over 2 decades of experience, she has worked at television stations nationwide, reporting on international, national, and local news. She has covered presidents like George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, President Obama, and many world leaders. She has conducted one-on-one interviews with presidential hopefuls, lawmakers, and corporate executives. In addition, she's conducted celebrity and lifestyle interviews for the Emmy-nominated daytime show, My Generation. And she's also had the interview of a lifetime, for even if it was a short one, with Oprah. Traci's versatility extends to acting, where she appeared as a principal actor on House of Cards. My goodness, Traci, it is truly a privilege to have you as a guest on Female Fluence. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Of course. Wow, you have a full-on resume. You've been everywhere, done everything. I've given a little bit of a background to our listeners, but if you could give us a little bit more in detail and tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
I think a lot of people have the same sort of story, right? You have a dream as a young child and you kind of follow along that dream. And for me, listening to you say all of those different things, it seems like it's been like a true lifetime, right? And it
You're like,
hasn't.
I did all this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember, I guess my first memory was back in 6th grade when I met a news reporter, and I'm a talker. And I remember asking her, "You get paid to talk?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh my goodness, this is what I want to do with my life. I mean, I want someone to pay me to tell stories, to talk." And I followed that trajectory like my entire life, right? I practiced in the mirror. I went to college. I majored in broadcast journalism and economics. And when I graduated from college, I had interviews from the IRS and Prudential and a TV station in Boston, Massachusetts. And I remember my mom going, "You can make a lot of money if you work for these financial powerhouses or for the government," right? But I said, "Well, Mom, I'm going to go to Boston. They're only paying me $17,000 a year, but that's what I want to do." And I was like a poor, starving reporter. I really, truly was, but loved every minute of it.
That's incredible to be like 10, 11 years old, to meet somebody that just ignites this fire in you and you decide, Oh my goodness, this is what I want to do. Like to find your purpose kind of early in life. That usually doesn't happen. So that's kind of a magical experience. Like we talked about, of course, Oprah is a big question. So just tell us how you came about to have that opportunity. What was the main question you asked her? And how did that change your perspective just in life from her, like listening to her wisdom, even if it was for a quick minute?
Well, I can tell you, I've been following you forever, right? And I feel like we have sort of the same thing. And when we decide to go for something, nothing will stand in our way. And that's what happened with Oprah. I found out that she was coming to Washington, D.C. I was a news reporter covering the White House and Capitol Hill at the time. And I remember going into my bureau chief and I said, "Hey, I heard Oprah's coming to town. Let's interview her." And she laughed. And
Like, yeah,
she's like, "You want
right.
to interview Oprah?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And she goes, "And how are we going to do this?" And I said, "I don't know, but I feel like I'm going to interview Oprah." And she goes, "Well, if you can do it, I will give you a photographer. You can take your shot." And I was like, okay. And I spent weeks like just figuring out, who do I know? Like,
Yeah.
who could possibly know Oprah? I was calling like the president of our news station. I mean, literally and I found out like after calling many people that we actually produced her magazine. So I said, "Are you kidding me?" So my TV station owned magazines, or at least work with magazine companies. And one person I called said, "Well, I can put you in touch with the magazine editor." And I was like, "Absolutely." So I called the editor, and the editor, she laughed too. And she goes, "So you want to interview Oprah?" And I was like, "No, no, I do." And she goes, "Well, everyone wants to interview Oprah."
Everybody
I said,
wants
"No, no, no, but I
to.
do." Right. And so
Yes.
she goes, "I like your energy. Give me a second." And she like worked it, and I got in touch with her publicist, and the publicist, Lisa, I think was her name at the time. She's not the same publicist. And I said, "This is what I want to do. I only need a few minutes on the red carpet, but I'd love to interview her." And she said, "Traci, I'm going to make that happen for you." And I just sat there like, okay,
I
this is
can't
fantastic.
even imagine. But this
Isn't
is
that
like
crazy?
true persistence. Like I love that because I'm the same way like you. Like if I make up my mind about something and people will laugh, I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like you try, and you don't get it, but at least you gave it like 120%, and that's what you did, and you achieved it.
Oh, and that this is what I was saying. Like, I feel like so many people give up,
Yes.
right? They hit one roadblock and they're like, "I can't do it. Or I'm too embarrassed, right? What do I say when I call them? I don't know what to say." And it doesn't really matter. And that is like the message I tell people all the time. You have to try. And the worst thing they can say is no.
Exactly.
But if you keep pushing, maybe you interview Oprah. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Oh
one of
my,
those
that would be like a dream come true.
things.
I will work on it. I don't know. So what happened when you finally met her? What did you ask her?
I was one of three people on the red carpet. It was me, Entertainment Tonight. I think it was a local newspaper. I can't remember who the other person was, and me. So, like, and it was incredible because I remember the guy was first from Entertainment Tonight, and he couldn't understand. We met her right outside of the convention center where she was going to be doing her show. There were literally thousands of people, like thousands. And it
I
was
can
a red
imagine.
carpet, and
Yes.
she rolled up with Gail King and her hair person and her makeup person. They all got out of the SUV, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And the ET guy was first, and he goes, "Why are all these people here for you?" And then Oprah turns to me and she goes, "He just doesn't understand, does he?" And I was like, "No, he does not." You know what I mean? Like it was just one of like, guys just don't get it, right? And because the majority of people in the crowd were women. And when she got to me, she talked to him for maybe 2 minutes. And she got to me and she gave me like almost 8 minutes of her time,
Wow.
which was incredible.
Yes.
And I like stumbled through the first, question. And I was like, "Well, what is it that you give them?" And she said, "I give them hope." Because if you think about me, I was just a little girl in Mississippi. I did not have any hopes or dreams. My grandmother was washing clothes as a maid. My mom was a maid, and I was supposed to be someone's maid. And she said, "And look at me. I am the American dream. So I give other women hope.
Mhm.
And I mean, like I had like chill bumps talking to her because she is walking inspiration. And I said, well, everything you do seems to turn to gold. And she laughed and she goes, did you see my movie? That was a huge flop, beloved. And she's like, that was my dream. It was my legacy. And it didn't work. And I cried and I tried and I cried. And she just talked about the mistakes that she had also made in life. And she even talked about, the whole weight loss journey. She goes, I did that on national TV. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everyone saw that and
Yes.
everyone saw my vulnerability, right? But the question that I asked her that I thought changed my own journey in life was, what is so special about you that the rest of us do not have? And she said, she laughed and she said, oh, you don't know. And I said, what don't I know? She goes, you don't know your purpose. And I said, I don't. And she goes, you don't know the meaning that you're alive. And she said, when you find that gift, when you find that purpose, and it's unique for each of us, right? And she goes, but when you find the reason that you are here and you live in that purpose, the entire world will open up. And she said, my journey is not your journey, but you have your own journey. And the tragedy of it all is if you live this life and never find that purpose, right? And so then it was just, that's what stuck with me. We have to live in our purpose and stop being other people or trying to get what other people have.
Right.
And if we can just live the life that we were meant to live, that life that was given to us at birth, then we will have all of the riches that are due to us in this lifetime. So that was the question that was like,
Wow,
you
Traci,
just
like you
touched
just
me.
explaining and saying this question and her answer, I literally have goosebumps. Like I felt like her answer in my heart, and I could see just transformed you in that moment, right? I mean, that is such a powerful moment, like with an amazing human being. That is incredible, and it's so nice that you took that and you really actually put it to good use, and you changed yourself, and then you have this an incredible book here that I have, stirring the pot. So, what was your main purpose about writing this book?
It was that time during COVID when we all just, it was like a reset, right?
Right.
And I had friends and family members die, and we were sitting in that silence. And I thought, I have to do something. I can't connect the normal ways that I connect, right? I can't do the things that I did. And I just started writing, and I told the stories of the people that I met and talked about their tragedies and their triumphs, and just my goal was honestly just to write. I didn't know what the book was going to be. I had no idea. I had no purpose. And I called an editor and I said, hey, can you help me with this book? Can you fix all of my errors and kind of make it into, and she's like, absolutely. And then, I was working with my publisher, and my publisher was like, well, keep writing and keep writing. And I think it's like something like 40,000 words or something like that. I think I started with 5,000, and I said, is that enough? And they were like, no, it's not. It's like, no, it's not. And I kept writing. And it was because I needed something to do during those quiet moments. I needed to keep my mind busy. And stirring the pot came from childhood memories. I'm from New Orleans. And anyone from New Orleans knows that gumbo is like, the dish of the South
Right,
for us.
right.
And every morning, every Saturday morning, my mom would get up and make something amazing. And I knew that when she was stirring that pot, that something was good was coming on the other side. So it gave me comfort. And I needed comfort in that time. So stirring the pot came from the comfort of my mother, the comfort of my childhood, and the comfort that I was seeking when the world was turning upside down.
It's like that comfort food that you need, on a cold day. It brought back childhood memories for you. That's really nice. Now, do you believe that each of us has a purpose? Do you think we all have a purpose that we kind of have to search for. And then once we do, it's going to change the whole pathway of our life.
Absolutely. I do. I really, truly do that we each have a purpose in this life. And I think that our life's work is to find that purpose, right? The unique part of it is I don't think that it's one thing. I think that your purpose is ever evolving
Mhm.
and meets you where you are at different times in your life. I believe that it may flow in a theme, but I don't think that it's one and done, right? I found my purpose. I'm done with
Right.
life. Like, I don't think that's what it is. But I do think we each have it. And one of the things that Oprah said to me, because I wanted to know, well, how do you find it? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, what's the
Right.
secret?
Give me the
And
secret.
yeah, right, right. And she goes, well, there's no secret. And she goes, you have to sit in your own silence. You have to stop listening to what other people tell you,
Yeah.
right? You have to take the criticism, the good and the bad, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in the accolades that we think, oh my God, this is it. This is the path, right? But she said, it's not how other people see you, it's how you see yourself. And sitting and listening into that internal voice that guides you. And she said, and sometimes the only way to find it is in your own silence. And, one thing that I did sort of on the heels of meeting Oprah and along my journey is I am like a hyper person. I don't know if you figured that out just yet, but I am like
You have
always
great
up.
energy. That's what I would say.
Yes,
Great
great
energy.
energy. That's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I remember every year I go to Canyon Ranch. I don't know if you've been to Canyon Ranch in Tucson, Arizona,
Yeah.
but you have to go.
Okay.
And it is this magical place where you just do weird stuff, right? Like I met with an astrologer, climbed a mountain for 4 hours. I
Oh,
did
wow.
stuff that was out of my comfort zone,
Right.
right? To kind of shake things up. And I met this woman who I did yoga for your dosha. And it was like, your dosha is like the Ayurvedic being that you are, and I'm Pitta. You can look it up. And she said, we're going to do yoga to calm you because you're fire with a little bit of wind, and that is never a good thing. And so for 1 week, we did yoga, and I was like, oh my God, yoga drives me crazy. I can't sit that still that long. I can't do this. And she's like, keep trying. And I was like, oh my God, this is so horrible. And at the end of the week, I loved yoga. I loved it so much. I came home and I became a yoga instructor.
You're
Now,
kidding.
I am not
So you
kidding you.
went from
I
hate to
teach
yoga.
yoga.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm sitting in like our first class, everyone's sitting around a circle, and they're like, I've been doing yoga for 15 years, and I've been doing yoga for 28 years. And they come to me and I said, I've been doing yoga for 2 months. and then, but I love it, right? And it's my way of calming myself and following that guide to figure out what my meaning and purpose is.
I mean, I do hot yoga, but for like over 15, maybe 20 years. And
Wow.
honestly, it is my favorite thing to do. It is my spiritual place. It's like when I'm having a bad day. I've cried in the yoga studio in the dark. Like,
Oh,
I mean, I have laughed. I have like released things. It is like the most magical place for me. And I just feel like whenever I need that like reset button, it's like, okay, some people go and they go to church. It's like I go to hot yoga. You know, that's my area to reset. I interview a lot of different women and we all talk about you need to like how you can find your purpose, but sometimes it's hard because you come across some people that are really stuck. Like it's very hard for them to shut that voice, whether it's the outside voice from people who, it's like the stories they've been fed to from since they were little, like, oh, you're not good enough, you can't do this, what are you gonna do? You can't make this up. You're gonna write a book, that's impossible. So it's like all those stories that they've heard all throughout their life and then that those voices plus their own voice that the inner critique that you were talking about, that it's like, oh, they walk by the mirror, it's like, oh, I can't do this, like, who am I? How can people overcome that? Because some people, it's really really hard just to listen and say, okay, like, I'm just going to quiet that voice and I'm going to go out there and find my purpose in life. But it's like they're lacking that confidence, they're lacking that spirit, they're really stuck on themselves, and they have like a negative attitude about everything that comes their way. What kind of advice would you give to those people?
It's, that's such a great question. I think that people look at other people and think they have it figured out, and none of us do. Absolutely none of us do. I was giving a speech the other day, and after the speech, someone said, "Well, you seem like your life is perfect." And I said, "Really? I do?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, it's not." And I said, "I've had tragedy like everyone else. I beat cancer. I had a rare cancer called dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans. Who has
Oh
that?
my goodness.
It's called
I can't
DFSP.
even pronounce that. Like, what did you just say?
It's
What?
well,
Wow.
DFSP. It's a
Okay.
rare cancer. Only a few hundred people get it a year, and me, right? So, and it was horrible. I won't even go into details, but I beat that. I had, when I was a little girl, probably in grade school. It was a holiday season. I walked outside of my house and was horrified. We were the only Black family in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Mhm.
Someone cut our Christmas lights. They sprayed the N word all over the sidewalk, all
Oh,
over our house, and they killed our dog.
oh my
I found the
gosh.
dog, right? And I mean, I can go on. When my daughter was a baby, 3 months old, we had a nanny just for 2 hours a day. And she took her on a walk, and someone witnessed her abusing my child, my baby. So we all have horrible
Yeah.
things that have happened to us. We all have people telling us we're not good enough. The thing that I have used is I have used my own vulnerability to tell my story to uplift others. When you do things in the service of other people, you find courage, you find strength, you find resilience in
Right.
the stories that you tell. So I always tell people when they ask me, be vulnerable enough to share your story. We're so busy, locked down,
Yes.
and so afraid to move forward that when you open up, you give yourself the freedom to be who you are in front of everybody else and in front of yourself. And I said, be careful of the stories that you tell because you're telling yourself the same thing, right? So when you constantly say, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't go with you guys. Well, then you become not good enough because
Yes.
you can't go with them. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I always say, change your narrative. So if someone says, hey, do you know how to do XYZ? Let's try it. Let's see if we can do this. You know what I mean? Or be vulnerable enough to show up. And if it doesn't work for people who you're with, you're not supposed to be with those people. So you know
Exactly.
what I mean? So that is my thing. The vulnerability, the narrative that you say out loud, and the narrative that you say to yourself inside. And those things will free you up to have the luxury of being able to find your purpose because it's not easy. It's not easy living. Life is not
No,
easy.
not at all. Not at all.
So you have to take what's given to you and keep pushing forward.
You are so inspiring. That's a great advice. And I really feel like vulnerability is the key. It's so important to do that.
Yes.
And I do feel like because of social media, a lot of people they're scrolling through and they do think everyone out there is living the perfect life. It's like behind
Yes.
every picture that you put, you know, you have no idea what is going on with a person's life. I always laugh. I go, like I remember when my kids were younger, it's like I would struggle so hard to take that one holiday picture. You have like the
Yes.
toddler that no one's like, no one's listening to you. And it's like I would be like shoving a goldfish in my son's face so that he would just smile for a second and not cry. It's like you finally get that picture, and I actually have one of the pictures down in my family room. And every time I look at it, I'm like, it looks beautiful. It just looks like we're like the most perfect, gorgeous family, but no one knows what we went through to get that one pose. It was a
That's
nightmare.
right.
Like we were all angry. My husband was like, I'm done. This is taking too long. I'm sweating, like but that's with everything. We all have good days, we all have bad days, we all
Yes.
grieve. But it's like and the stories that we tell ourselves, those are the most important stories. Someone was telling me, oh, like I'm having pain, and what if I like have the same pain that I had from you? I go, stop telling yourself this. If you
Right.
start telling yourself that I'm gonna have that same pain and I'm gonna go into depression and I'm gonna go through what I went 5 years ago, then I'm sorry to tell you, you are going to do
Yes.
all of those things. So
Yes.
immediately when that story comes up, it's like, no, I'm big, I'm so much more wiser, I'm stronger. I'm going to be able to handle this and I'm not going to go back to where I was 5 years ago. That's the story you need to tell yourself.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think that I always say that, we're looking at everybody's outside from our inside, right? You're looking at only what they're showing you, and you're
Right.
comparing that to who you are, and it's never going to be the same.
No,
Yeah.
no. So along the lines of that, do you think that courage and risk taking opens doors to new opportunities and growth? Think that like trauma can even sometimes ground you and you grow out of it and you have to kind of get out of your comfort zone. Because if we kind of stay in that, zone that we're very comfortable, we're not really growing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that some of the strongest people have been through some of the worst things, right? You continue to push through no matter what. I remember the classmate of mine when I was writing my book, Carla Albright, and she was brilliant. I mean, she really was. She was amazing in high school, loved her, just sweet, kind. We lost touch. And so when I put out a call for women who are doing extraordinary things on Facebook, because I just wanted to interview more women, and most people were like, oh my gosh, my auntie is great. Oh, I met this woman. You have to talk to her. DeCarla was the only one who said, I think you should interview me. And I was just like, whoa, oh my goodness, okay. And so yeah, I get on the phone with her and I said, oh my gosh, we haven't talked since high school. Like, what are you doing? And she's like the dean of the medical school at UPenn. And I mean, she's amazing. Like she really is brilliant. And I was like, oh, that's incredible. Like she's like helps other OBs, find their voice and manage. And I was like, oh my God, you're doing incredible things. And she goes, well, that's not why I wanted to talk to you. And I said, well, what did you want to talk about? Because I don't understand. And
Right.
she said, I want to talk about my journey to get you where I was. And I said, oh, tell me, because again, we lost touch. And she starts off telling me how she really had never had a boyfriend in high school because she was working so hard and was kind of awkward and didn't know how to meet boys. So
Right.
when she went away to college, she met a guy who was from New Orleans and she felt at home with this guy because he's from home, right? And it
Right.
was her first real boyfriend. And then she told the story of how he, like so many victims, isolated her,
Oh gosh.
showered her with kindness. Like she had no other friends, she had nowhere to turn. And then he started abusing her. And this is a brilliant woman. And it happened all through undergrad. And she said she had seen another woman get abused in public. So she thought must be what relationships are about. So she allowed it to happen, didn't tell anyone. It happened all through medical school. And it wasn't until he beat her so badly
Oh my
and put
God.
a gun to her head playing Russian roulette that she got out. And she said, Traci, I sat there praying and I said, God, if you allow me to live, I will get out of this. I will never be in this situation again. And he kept rolling and the bullet never came out. She lived through it. And the week he had to go out, of course, he was very loving after the next morning and
Of course.
and bought gifts for her. And then he went out of town and she said that she packed up everything she owned. She had been waiting for that moment and just left and never looked back. And she said, I tell you this because I found strength in the fact that I was strong enough to leave this man who I'd been with for 8 years and had suffered for 8 years. And I said, my life's goal is to help other women so they never have to suffer in silence again. And she became an OB so that she could work with women, so she can identify the signs, so that she can help other medical providers. So, to answer your question, absolutely, it makes you stronger.
Yes. What a story. I mean, I'm so glad that your friend survived and she got out, but that is such a scary story. And that's like
Horrible.
that was her first relationship, so wow. So I mean, these are the stories. Again, we talk about storytelling that we learn and we grow from it.
Yes.
Now, what steps do you think we can take for our listeners listening to truly discover ourselves in midlife? Because I know midlife is kind of a challenging time. And my mission, my movement is just to tell everyone out there, it's like midlife is going to be like the best time of your life because you're so much more wiser, you're stronger, you're resilient, you're confident. And now it's like, you've learned so much from your experiences, you can do so much more, and find whether it's finding your purpose, doing the things that you like, giving back. But what would you think? What are the first steps we can take?
Well, I have to say, I think especially women in their midlife, we're extraordinary, like extraordinary. The first step, I think, every woman in transition, right? Whatever your transition is, divorce,
Right.
I don't know, midlife, whatever,
Yeah.
is remember that you are the author of your own life. You can rewrite your life whenever you want to. When you meet somebody for the first time, they don't know anything about you. It's only what you tell them and what you show them,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's how they know who you are. So take this time and figure out who you want to be. And how do you rewrite that chapter of your life so you can become that person? It's like you can't change what happened to you in the past. It definitely shapes you, but it doesn't define you.
Right.
You decide how you're going to move forward. And I tell people all the time, I'm a firm believer in yoga. I'm a believer in meditation. You find whatever your quiet moment is and decide, how am I going to live the rest of my life? Because the tragedy is not becoming who you're meant to be. Right. And I think in midlife, that's our sole goal at this point. We raised our children,
Yeah.
right? We're probably taking care of our parents. There's not enough time to wait for the perfect moment to take care of yourself. So I always say self care, right? Take some time to figure out who you are and where you want to be. And I mean, just I believe in exercise, drinking lots of water, and being the best version that you can honestly be.
Yeah.
And I think that is our goal in life, right? Figure out who you want to be as healthy as you can be,
Healthy.
and
Right.
be unapologetically you, no matter what that means and who you have to shed from your life and what you have to do. It's important.
It is. Everything you said, I'm right there with you. Actually, this is a perfect time. I'm going to read a little section from your book because it aligns exactly with what you just told us. I need to wear my glasses so I can see.
Oh, I have some too.
Okay, by changing the way you see the world, the way you think, you will change your life. Believe in things that are not right in front of you. Explore. Step out of your comfort zone. Walk into tomorrow putting yourself first. Self-care, ladies. There's only one of you. No one else has your gifts or talents. Start living your life on purpose. Just take the first step. You may stumble or fall flat on your face, knowing that failing has nothing to do with you being a failure. It's just another life lesson. I don't pretend to know it all. I don't. But I do know that every day is a gift. I wake up every day living my life on purpose, accepting what I already have and sharing it with others. I know that the things I have done, I didn't do on my own. None of us do much of anything on our own. Sometimes we have to lean on the shoulders of others who are strong enough to hold us up. Luck or the universe aren't always on our side. Bad things do happen. I grieve, I might cuss, but after I get out of the furry, I can see the experience as a lesson. I learn and I move on. What I know for sure is that you find your purpose when you accept what is given, when you own your magic. Your purpose is ever evolving and encompasses every aspect of your life. You may find purpose in the work you do, the life you live, or the time you give. I love this. It was so empowering. And I just feel like this is exactly like our entire interview is all about this, like finding our purpose, knowing who we are, surrounding ourselves with good people so that we can lean on them when we have to, because we all need that. It was just very powerful. I had to share it with my listeners today. So Traci, I want to ask you, so do you feel like you have found your gift and are you using them fully?
I absolutely have found my gift. I mean, my gift is storytelling and retelling the stories of others and giving them that voice and that power. I it's so funny. I don't know if I'm using it fully right now. That's my moment of vulnerability. I felt like before COVID, I had the spark. I was on fire. I was moving forward. And then the quiet kind of calmed me to a place of, am I doing what I love? Am I doing what I should be doing?
Right.
And so I've taken this time to sort of reset. Every year I pick a word, like people do resolutions. I
Yes.
do words. And my word last year was transformation, right? My word this year is more in line with identity. How am I going to show up every day? I spent all of last year trying to figure out who I want to be right now, because again, we decide, right? And I'm still trying to figure out if I'm fully using my gift. I mean, I'm creating a course to help women with storytelling. I've been on the keynote circuits. I've been traveling quite a bit, telling those stories, and just sort of redefining as I go. But what I know is that when I do it in service of others, not just selfishly for me, the doors open up.
It's very true. And I like you also have, I follow the word as a rule. I may have a word of the year. So my word
Oh,
is
nice.
completion. Yeah, that's it. When you said, I was like, oh, I do the same thing. And I feel like sometimes I tend to do too many different things at the same time. And then I get overloaded. And I'm just like, so now I'm trying to be like, okay, I can't sign up for this. I can't do this. I have to complete everything that I have on my plate before I take on any new projects. So I love that. It's a great way to start the year. It's so important for us to tell our stories. And why is it important to kind of listen to other people's stories?
I think it's important because we each have a story, right? And I think that, people like me who is unafraid to tell a story, sometimes I will drown someone else out, right? And I feel like that's why I made it my mission to help other people tell their stories, because every story is important. It's what connects us. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like the movements that we make. And sometimes I've had people go, well, my story is not important. I met this woman real quickly. This is like, her story was amazing. She's a caterer, and she's kind of shy, definitely introvert. And she got up on stage and she had catered this event I was at. And she kind of looked down and she's telling her story. And she talked about how when she was growing up, um, she grew up super poor in this building, and the smell that she smelled was urine every day. That's all she knew, right? She knew that smell. And one day when she was coming home from school, she's going up this urine soaked stairway, and her neighbor snatches her into the apartment and throws her under the bench the woman is sitting on. She pushes her back and holds her with her legs. And she was frightened. She didn't know what was going on. And then a hail of bullets fire, and it killed the neighbor.
Oh my,
And this is the caterer telling this story, right? And I'm sitting here like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
wow.
And the woman was saving her life, but she didn't. She was a little girl. She had no idea. And she said, and she just will never, she could never thank her because the woman died, right? The bullets hit her and didn't, it would, anyway. So she's telling this story, and then she goes on to another story where her sister died. She and her sister were best friends and died super young. And at the funeral, her mother turned to her and said, the wrong child died.
Oh my goodness.
Is that horrible?
Oh, that
And
is
she said,
so,
so that's why I started my catering business. And I'm like, stop. I'm like, wait, what's going on? The organizer wanted her to tell her story like that. And I remember going up to her afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say. I said, but you should tell your story because your resilience. I mean, the courage you had to step forward, and for your mother to say something like that,
right. That's
that would see
horrible.
you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the fact that you were able to become this like incredible caterer with, she has something like 28 employees. I mean, she's
Wow.
running a business. She's doing something in amazing. You know what I mean? Like, be proud to tell that story because you will be an inspiration for so many.
Of
And so
course.
it's almost like what you do on this podcast, you give other women the license to speak up and tell their stories. And that's a horrible story. That's an embarrassing story. I mean, who would you- to have the courage to stand on the stage in front of 500 people and tell that truth is amazing. So I feel like you're doing such an amazing job of doing that, right?
you.
Your podcast, so many people hear you and say, oh my gosh, she is giving me license to be who I am. So yeah,
Thank you,
we
Tracy.
can all do
That
our
means a
part.
lot coming from you. Whatever I can do for any woman, that's my mission. So thank you so much. Wow, that's a harsh story to listen to. You said what's next chapter on your mission? Because I know you haven't. We talked about that. There's so many different purposes and different seasons. I think you say that in your book too. It's like I feel the same way. Different times of your life, there's a different path that you have to take based on the purpose for that season. So where are you leading now?
I am going to do more keynotes. I've decided that I'm shedding everything else because I have like 15 jobs. I'm not even joking because I'll say yes to pretty much everything, right? I have a podcast that I'm actually working on with funny story. I love to sew. I don't know if you can see, you can't see. I have a loft in my office
Okay.
and I have all of my fabric. I have 3 sewing machines, and that is my quiet time. I make clothes. I design and make clothes for myself.
Wow,
So
that's
I spend a,
incredible. That's like
I
your
love it.
meditation, right? And your
I
creativity. Yeah.
100%. And so I met the owner of the store where I buy all of my fabric, and he goes, "Can we do a podcast?" And I was like, at first I said, "No, I don't really want to take that on." And he goes, "Well, we can do sort of like community impact, just pulling community leaders." And I was like, "Oh." So I think we're going to start doing that. Like I said, the keynotes that, and I really want to spend more time sewing. Like I really want to spend more time in my sewing room.
Doing
Just
something that you love, right?
yes, yes.
That's the way to do it. That's incredible. Now, I have one last question for you. Can you tell us your experience when you shared the stage with another powerful person, and how was that experience? Because you had some fear, but you kind of faced your fear. And how did you go about doing that?
100%. So I was invited. So I mentioned before that I used to cover the White House and Capitol Hill for many years. And I worked for 46 stations across the nation. One of my stations was KTVU in San Francisco. So an organization in San Francisco, political organization, called and said, "Hey, would you do our keynote for this event?" And I was like, sure. Here's the funny thing. Back then, I hated doing speeches. And I was like, oh God, they want me to do another speech. And so I was like, my husband was like, Trace, just do it. I was like, I just don't like them. And I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. So, I started working on this speech, and I just couldn't get the rhythm, the flow going. And probably about 3, 4 weeks before the event, the organizer called and she said, "Oh my God, I have incredible news." And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" And I thought she was going to say, "You don't have to do the speech," right? Because I'm like,
You're
I
like,
didn't want to do
yes.
it. And she goes, "Winnie Mandela is going to be at the event." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I said, "So she's doing the keynote?" And she goes, "No, you're still doing the keynote." I said, "Well, what is Winnie Mandela going to do? Because if I'm doing the keynote, what is," and she goes, "Well, she can only stay for a short time. She's going to speak before you. And then she'll like we'll introduce you and you'll come on." And I was like, that sounds like a
What?
horrible idea. Right? Like, really? And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
oh, and I said to my husband, "I'm going to call and tell them I'm sick. And then Winnie Mandela can do
Do the
the
whole
event."
speech.
Right? Who wants to follow Winnie Mandela? It's like following Oprah. Like there's
That's a lot of
nothing I could
pressure,
say.
Tracy. That's a lot of pressure.
It's ridiculous. So I wrote my speech. I flew to San Francisco or to Oakland, and Winnie Mandela was there because I was like, maybe she won't show up. So Winnie Mandela was there, and I was like, I never get nervous. Like I've been in front of millions of people, and I just don't get nervous. I was shaking like a leaf. Like sweat pouring down my armpits, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I'm like hyperventilating. And my husband's like, "I've never seen you like this." I was like, "It's Winnie Mandela."
Yeah,
So,
right.
so she does her thing and everyone stands up roaring and, like applause. And I'm walking up to the podium, passing her as I'm walking up. And I said, "That was amazing." And she goes, and I said, "I don't know how I'm going to top that." And she took me by my shoulders and just kind of extended her arms. And she said, "You're not supposed to top it. Just tell your story." And she goes, "It'll be great." And then she gave me a big hug. And I was like, okay. And then I just totally went off script. And I told the story that I wanted to tell that I just couldn't get on paper. And, I got huge applause. And Winnie Mandela, by the way, had left at that time. So I actually felt better telling the story
Right.
since she wasn't there to hear it. But it was such a moment for me because it was that moment when I realized we each have stories to tell. I was so busy trying to top or be like Winnie Mandela, but I
Right.
couldn't because I didn't live her life, right? And when I kind of sat back and she said that to me, I was like, all I can do is tell the story that I know,
Right.
my authentic story, right? And then that's going to have to be enough. So I guess that is my message for people, right? Just like me, I was trying to impress Winnie Mandela, which
Right. I mean,
anybody
that's
would
such a
say.
profound moment. The moment that she looked at you and said this to you. Right here, you're telling this story, you're being vulnerable, you're sharing it with all of us that even you're, this Emmy awarded journalist, you can be nervous too. You can get anxious on a stage and it's okay. But the truth of the matter is, yes, like we all have to be ourselves. As long as we are, we sometimes feel like we need to compete or I have to do better than that person that just made the speech. No, it's like, just be you. Like the only person that can be you is you. So just be yourself. And that's
A
what you did.
100%. It's really funny. So this probably many years later, we were at a concert. It was like the Women of Soul with President Obama, Michelle Obama at the White House. It was a little private concert, and they had like Giselle Monet, Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, and like all of these incredible women.
You
And
are
they had
around
Ariana.
incredible people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I didn't meet them. I mean,
I
I
know, but
talked to them, but you
still
know what I
being
mean?
in
But
that energy, right? Yeah.
yes, exactly. But Ariana Grande was there. And right before they told us they're going to start recording, it was for PBS and it was going to be recorded. I had to use the bathroom. So I was like, oh my God, I got to go to the bathroom. And I don't know if you've ever been to the White House, but there's not a bathroom right there. Like you got to find the bathroom. So, and I have on heels, so I'm like running down the hallway trying to get to the bathroom quickly. And I go into the bathroom and Ariana Grande is sitting in the bathroom. I'm
Oh,
not even kidding.
wow.
And she's sitting there and she's looking so nervous. And she's like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was like, are you okay? And she goes, no, I have to perform in front of Aretha Franklin and Patti LaBelle. And I was like, girl, I have been there. I understand. And so, I told her like my little brief story. And I was like, you will be fantastic. I mean, you're Ariana Grande. I mean, you're like a
Right.
legend already.
Exactly.
And I said, and they probably want to hear you too. And she's super sweet. She gave me this big hug and she's like, okay, I have to go out there, don't I? I was like, yeah, you gotta have to go out there. And I said, so I'm going to use the bathroom, so I'll see you when you go out there. And it's funny because she was about to perform, and she must have said that to Patti LaBelle because they had her performing right after Patti LaBelle, which I was like, really? And
Oh,
so
wow.
Patti like said something to her and gave her a big hug and she seemed to calm down and I have no idea what she said, but I can only imagine that she said something similar, right?
Right.
Like, I want to hear you sing or whatever. Her performance was flawless. I mean, incredible. But it is, to your point, it goes to show that each of us has those moments
Right.
where we're like not feeling like we're enough.
Exactly.
And you just have to remind yourself, and hopefully there's an angel or somewhere nearby who reminds you, as I was reminded, that you are enough.
That's a great story. I love the bonding happening in the White House bathroom with Ariana Grande.
Right.
And that's a very, I mean, I don't think a lot of people have these unique stories that you have. That's incredible. I mean, I feel like I can talk to you forever, but I know just to be respectful of your time, just to wrap up, midlife calls us inward, inviting us to reclaim the forgotten parts of ourselves while honoring our creativity and wisdom. It's a season for reflecting on our values, dreams, and desires, and boldly envisioning the future we truly want. This journey isn't just about realigning, it's about discovering a path that resonates with our authentic selves. Today, we've heard from Traci, whose story reminds us that our narratives matter. She teaches us that fear should never keep us from pursuing our dreams. She says, when we listen within, we recognize how extraordinary we truly are. With that understanding, we realize that the impossible is possible because all women are capable of greatness. In her book, Stirring the Pot, she explores the lives of successful women who are living on purpose. She reveals what it takes to uncover one's own purpose, fall in love with one's life, and live more boldly. This is the essence of what we all strive for. Thank you, Traci, for being on Female Fluence. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
I just want to say that you are incredible, amazing, and you really, truly are extraordinary. The gift that you're giving everyone is priceless. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Traci. All the links to get a hold of Traci will be on my show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together, we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.